There comes a moment in life when we start to notice the small signs of slowing down. The morning stiffness, the fatigue that lingers longer than before. For many, this feels like the start of inevitable decline. But in Outlive, The Science and Art of Longevity, Dr. Peter Attia offers a different story. Once a driven physician who found himself overweight and mentally exhausted despite his medical knowledge, Attia realized that simply treating disease wasn't enough. He began searching for ways to build a life that wasn't just long, but deeply healthy and fulfilling. That journey became the foundation of this book. Peter Attia, a Stanford and Johns Hopkins trained physician, is widely known for his podcast The Drive and his deep exploration of longevity science. In Outlive, co-written with journalist Bill Gifford, Attia blends cutting-edge research with personal experience to show that aging is not something to endure, but something we can influence. His message is both scientific and hopeful. The choices we make today, how we eat, move, rest, and manage stress, can reshape the years ahead. Aging, he reminds us, isn't destiny. It's a project we can work on with intention and care. Building on that idea of aging as a project, the author believes our current healthcare system is looking at the problem backward. Modern medicine, as it stands today, focuses on treating illness only after it appears. He calls this approach Medicine 2.0. In this model, doctors wait until blood sugar levels are dangerously high before diagnosing diabetes or until arteries are clogged before addressing heart disease. It's a system built around crisis management rather than prevention. In Outlive, The Science and Art of Longevity, the author introduces Medicine 3.0, a way of thinking that flips this idea completely. Instead of reacting to disease, it aims to stop it before it ever begins. This means measuring and understanding health decades earlier, not when symptoms show up, but when the early warning signs are still invisible. He said that our fate isn't fixed and that aging is far more flexible than most people assume. The science of longevity, in his view, is about shifting from survival to optimization. The author makes an important distinction between lifespan and healthspan. Lifespan is simply the number of years we live, while healthspan is the number of years we remain active, strong, and mentally sharp. Living to 90 or 100 doesn't mean much if the last 20 years are spent in pain or dependency. The true goal, he argues, is to compress morbidity, to shrink the years of illness into as short a period as possible. In other words, the best kind of longevity is one where you live fully until the very end. He observes that many people today survive longer thanks to modern medicine, but often do so with chronic diseases that limit their quality of life. The author thinks this is a failure of how we define health. Medicine should not just keep people alive with disease, but keep them free from it for as long as possible. That shift requires seeing ourselves not as passive patients, but as active participants in shaping our future health. Every habit, how we eat, how we move, how we rest, contributes to either extending or eroding our health span. One powerful part of this philosophy is how it gives control back to the individual. Instead of waiting for a diagnosis, we can take responsibility early. The author emphasizes that prevention isn't just about avoiding risk, it's about creating resilience. By managing blood sugar, maintaining muscle, and supporting mental well-being, we prepare our bodies and minds for the decades ahead. He encourages people to think of their future selves not as distant strangers, but as someone they're actively building today. Readers often describe the tone of Outlive as surprisingly hopeful. Unlike many books that warn about the dangers of aging, this one feels empowering. It's not about fear, but about possibility. The author doesn't suggest we can cheat death or reverse time. Instead, he argues that through knowledge, consistency, and care, we can change the story of how we age. His message is simple: longevity is not an accident of genetics or luck. It's a daily practice, shaped by awareness and discipline. What makes this vision compelling is how practical it feels. Anyone, regardless of background or age, can start applying the principles of Medicine 3.0. It begins with curiosity, learning about our health early, measuring what matters, and making small, consistent changes before disease ever has a chance to form. In doing so, we don't just extend life. We enhance the quality of every moment we're given. That's the essence of living smarter, not just longer. Building on the idea of taking charge of our health before problems appear, The author introduces what he calls the Four Horsemen of aging. These are the major diseases that most often cut lives short after midlife: heart disease, cancer, neurodegenerative disorders, and metabolic dysfunction. Each of them has different symptoms and risks, yet they all share one thing in common. They develop quietly, often over decades, long before anyone feels unwell. The author thinks that by understanding these conditions early, we can weaken their impact and even delay them entirely. Heart disease is the first of these horsemen, and it remains the leading cause of death worldwide. The author points out that many people's first sign of trouble is a fatal heart attack, meaning the disease has been silently progressing for years. Traditional medicine waits until cholesterol or blood pressure readings become alarming, but that approach is often too late. Instead, the author suggests testing more advanced markers, such as ApoB, a measure of the particles that actually drive plaque buildup in arteries. He believes that knowing these numbers early gives us the power to act decades before the damage becomes irreversible. In this view, prevention isn't just about avoiding a crisis. It's about extending vitality through knowledge. The second horseman is cancer, which nearly half of all people will face in their lifetime. The author said that while we can't eliminate risk completely, we can greatly reduce it through lifestyle habits and consistent screening. Tobacco use, excess body fat, and long periods of inactivity all increase risk, but the good news is that change matters. Regular movement, maintaining a healthy weight, and early detection through modern screening tools can dramatically improve outcomes. The author encourages readers not to view cancer prevention as fear-driven, but as a practical way to guard the years ahead. By shifting the mindset from reaction to vigilance, we can catch problems when they're still small and manageable. The third horseman, neurodegenerative disease, often strikes deep emotional fear because it affects who we are, our memories, personality, and independence. Conditions like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's can seem untouchable, but the author believes they're not entirely out of our control. He highlights that brain health is deeply linked to cardiovascular and metabolic health. When blood vessels are healthy and blood sugar is stable, the brain receives the nutrients and oxygen it needs to stay sharp. High blood pressure, poor sleep, and chronic inflammation quietly harm brain cells over time. The author thinks that by protecting our hearts, we are, in many ways, protecting our minds. The final horseman, metabolic dysfunction, may be the most underestimated of all. It includes insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, and fatty liver disease, conditions that quietly damage the body's internal balance. Poor metabolic health doesn't just lead to diabetes. It also increases the risk of heart disease, cancer, and dementia. The author often calls insulin resistance the common soil from which many other diseases grow. He stresses that controlling blood sugar and maintaining metabolic flexibility, the body's ability to efficiently use both fat and glucose for fuel, is one of the most powerful forms of prevention available. By recognizing these four horsemen, the author invites us to shift from anxiety to action. The message isn't about fearing disease, but understanding it deeply enough to act early. Knowing which of these risks applies most to us helps direct our efforts, whether that means improving diet, managing stress, or getting more precise health screenings. The fight against aging, as the author sees it, begins with identifying these true enemies and addressing them long before they strike. Through awareness and consistent care, we can change the odds of how we age and how well we live. Building on the idea of confronting the four horsemen, the next step is taking control of your own health strategy. The author believes longevity isn't about following a one-size-fits-all routine. It's about tailoring your approach to your body, your risks, and your life. What works for one person may not work for another, and that's where self-awareness becomes the most powerful tool. Understanding your family history, genetic predispositions, and lifestyle habits creates the foundation for a plan that truly fits. The author encourages everyone to think like scientists of their own bodies. Numbers such as blood sugar, cholesterol, especially ApoB, and waist size aren't just statistics. They're clues that reveal how well your system is aging. When those numbers start drifting upward, it's an early sign that something inside is changing. Acting at that stage, rather than waiting for symptoms, can make all the difference between prevention and treatment. Technology, the author thinks, can be a great ally in this process. Devices like sleep monitors, fitness trackers, or continuous glucose sensors can turn ordinary days into useful experiments. They provide real-time feedback on how food, exercise, or stress affect your body. But there's a warning here. It's easy to get lost in the flood of data. The goal isn't perfection, it's progress. The numbers should serve you, not control you. What truly matters is the spirit of self-experimentation. Small, deliberate trials, such as changing your diet pattern, adjusting fasting windows, or testing different exercise types, can reveal what brings the best results for your unique biology. The author said that this approach helps you understand your body's responses instead of blindly following health trends. It's about curiosity and responsibility, not rigidity. Ultimately, this mindset shifts how we view medicine. The author calls it Medicine 3.0, a philosophy that replaces passive treatment with active prevention. Instead of relying on doctors to fix problems after they arise, we become partners in maintaining long-term vitality. Each small adjustment is a vote for your future self, and every day becomes an opportunity to invest in years you haven't lived yet. Living longer begins not in hospitals or labs, but in everyday awareness and small, consistent actions that keep you thriving. Moving from self-experimentation to daily habits, the author turns to one of the most misunderstood pillars of longevity, nutrition. The core belief is clear: fixing metabolism matters more than chasing weight loss. The real threat to long-term health isn't fat itself, but insulin resistance, the quiet disruption that throws the body off balance. Even people who look lean can have unhealthy metabolism if their blood sugar control is poor. That's why the focus should shift from counting calories to understanding how food chemistry shapes our energy and aging. The author said that arguments about whether keto, vegan, or paleo is best often miss the point. Instead of following rigid diets, he encourages using 3 simple levers: eat fewer total calories, lower refined carbohydrates, or limit the time window for eating. Each lever affects insulin and metabolism differently. The key is to test and track how your body responds. Some may thrive on time-restricted eating, while others feel better with balanced meals spread throughout the day. What matters most is consistency and awareness, not ideology. Food quality also stands at the heart of his philosophy. The author thinks our modern diet is flooded with processed choices that inflame the body and destabilize blood sugar. Choosing nutrient-dense, whole foods, vegetables, lean proteins, and healthy fats brings stability back. A plate of grilled salmon with greens nourishes the body far better than a protein bar or sugary drink. Over time, these quiet choices add up, building a foundation that protects against all 4 horsemen of aging. Protein deserves special mention. As the author explained, aging naturally erodes muscle, and that loss reduces strength, metabolism, and even independence. He calls muscle the organ of longevity because it shields us from frailty, insulin resistance, and falls later in life. Eating enough high-quality protein, combined with resistance training, keeps muscles active and metabolism resilient. It's not about bodybuilders, it's about preserving function and vitality for decades to come. The author also views fasting as a practical, flexible tool rather than a strict ritual. Going without food for long stretches isn't necessary for most people, but even simple habits, like avoiding late-night snacks, can reset insulin sensitivity and improve sleep quality. He warns against making fasting an identity or contest. The value lies in balance and self-awareness, not extremes. Ultimately, his message is to personalize nutrition the same way you would personalize exercise or recovery. Eat mindfully, track what truly affects your energy, and let data guide small, sustainable adjustments. Don't obsess over perfection or labels. The goal is steady improvement, meals that leave you energized, labs that stay in a healthy range, and habits that quietly extend both lifespan and health span. Building on nutrition and metabolism, the author turns to what he considers the single most powerful tool for longevity: exercise. He describes it as the most effective longevity drug because no pill, supplement, or medical treatment can match its benefits. Exercise doesn't just add years to life, it improves how those years feel. It strengthens the heart, preserves muscle, stabilizes metabolism, and protects the brain. In his view, movement is medicine, and every step, lift, or stretch is an investment in your future self. To make this idea more tangible, The author introduces a concept he calls the Centenarian Decathlon. It's not about running marathons or competing in sports. It's about identifying 10 physical tasks you'd like to be able to do when you're 100 years old. That might mean climbing a flight of stairs without help, lifting a heavy suitcase, or getting up from the floor easily. Once you define those goals, you train for them today. The vision isn't about looking fit in your 30s. It's about maintaining freedom and strength decades later. The author builds this training philosophy around 4 core pillars. The first is endurance, often developed through what he calls Zone 2 cardio, steady, moderate activity like brisk walking, cycling, or swimming that strengthens the heart and mitochondria without exhaustion. This type of movement teaches the body to use energy efficiently and forms the foundation for metabolic health. The second pillar is high-intensity interval training, or HIIT, which challenges the cardiovascular system in short bursts and improves resilience. The third pillar is strength training, which the author treats as non-negotiable. Muscle is described as a biological reserve that supports nearly every system in the body. Strong muscles protect joints, stabilize posture, and keep metabolism high even during aging. He often reminds readers that muscle mass is one of the strongest predictors of long life, not just because it supports physical power, but because it guards against disease and frailty. Even small gains in strength can translate into years of independence. The final pillar is stability, balance, coordination, and flexibility, often ignored but vital for long-term health. The author points out that many older adults don't lose mobility because they lack strength. They lose it because they fall and never fully recover. Practicing simple movements like single-leg stands or rotational stretches helps preserve this control. Stability is what keeps the other 3 pillars working together. Research supports these principles. Studies consistently show that high muscle mass and cardiovascular fitness lower mortality risk and delay chronic diseases. The author sees this as training for your future self, the idea that every workout today prepares the body for what life demands tomorrow. He practices what he teaches, lifting weights competitively well into his 40s and 50s, but he's quick to remind that intensity is less important than consistency. A person who walks daily, moves often, and lifts moderately will often age better than someone who trains hard but inconsistently. In the end, exercise isn't about vanity or athleticism. It's an insurance policy for the decades ahead. The author thinks of every movement as a deposit into a longevity account. The stronger, steadier, and more capable you remain, the more independence and vitality you preserve. Exercise doesn't just help you live longer. It helps you stay alive in every sense of the word. After emphasizing the power of movement, the author turns to a quieter but equally essential pillar of longevity: rest and emotional balance. Physical strength means little without recovery, and that recovery begins with sleep. The author thinks of sleep as the body's nightly maintenance cycle, where cells repair damage, the brain clears waste, and hormones reset. Without enough quality rest, every other effort, nutrition, exercise, or supplementation, loses its impact. He stresses that both the quantity and quality of sleep matter. Many adults may spend enough hours in bed, but still wake feeling foggy or fatigued because their sleep is shallow or disrupted. The author advises paying attention to basic routines, going to bed and waking up at consistent times, keeping the room dark and cool, and reducing screen exposure before bedtime. These small adjustments might sound simple, but they can lower stress hormones, stabilize blood sugar, and improve mood. The goal isn't perfection, but creating the right conditions for the body to do what it's designed to do: heal itself. Beyond sleep, the author sees emotional health as the hidden backbone of longevity. He warns that ignoring it can lead to what he calls the ultimate curse: living long but feeling empty. The science supports this view. Chronic stress floods the body with cortisol, which accelerates inflammation, raises blood pressure, and weakens immunity. Over time, emotional strain can silently erode physical health. The author argues that emotional resilience is not just psychological comfort, but biological protection. To manage this, he recommends simple but consistent practices. Deep breathing, meditation, journaling, or talking to a therapist are not indulgences. They're tools that recalibrate the nervous system. These habits lower stress and improve clarity, helping people respond to life with steadiness rather than reactivity. Even short daily moments of calm can create long-term benefits by breaking the cycle of constant tension. The author thinks that caring for the mind is just as critical as caring for the muscles or heart. He also highlights the profound effect of connection and purpose. Studies across cultures show that people with strong relationships and a sense of meaning live longer and happier lives. The author echoes this insight. Isolation is toxic, but community heals. Having people to share time, laughter, or even struggle with keeps the spirit resilient. Similarly, finding purpose, whether through family, work, or service, gives life direction that no supplement or gym routine can replace. In the end, longevity isn't only about surviving the years. It's about filling them with presence, balance, and peace. The author believes that how we rest, cope, and connect determines the quality of every decade. A long life without emotional health isn't success. It's survival without fulfillment. True longevity blends strong muscles with a calm mind, creating the space to not only live longer, but to live well. As the journey through Outlive, the science and art of longevity comes to a close, what stays with us is a sense of hope rather than fear. The author reframes aging not as an inevitable decline, but as a skill we can train. Every decision, what we eat, how we move, how we rest, and how we manage our minds, becomes an investment in the decades ahead. The message is empowering. Longevity isn't a gift handed out by chance, but something shaped by daily habits and self-awareness. The Four Horsemen remind us of what truly threatens our later years. Yet Medicine 3.0 shows that prevention can rewrite the story. The author doesn't ask for perfection or obsession, but for progress, small, steady actions that stack over time. That philosophy makes the science deeply human. It's not just about lowering cholesterol or improving VO2 max. It's about being able to dance at your daughter's wedding, travel with energy, or stay mentally sharp enough to enjoy what matters. What stands out most is how purpose ties it all together. We seek longevity not simply to add years, but to fill those years with meaning. Maybe it's worth asking yourself, what would your own Centenarian Decathlon look like? Choose one habit to start today and imagine the future self you're building. As the author shows, living longer isn't about defying time. It's about learning how to use it well.